Hello. Sorry I can't be with you today, but I'm on vacation. Still, I want to talk about Great by Choice by Jim Collins and Morton T. Hansen. More specifically, Chapter 5, The 10X Journey and Leading Above the Death Line. Now, the overarching theme of this chapter is productive paranoia, but more on that later from the rest of the team. First, I'd like to define for you what we mean by the death line. The book does this by way of a graph. I call it a concept graph because there are no actual data points here, but there's a concept represented. We have an x-axis and we have a y-axis. The x-axis is linear time in general. The y-axis is events that happen in time. We have good events and we have bad events, defined by this trend line. This trend line is the 10x journey. Anything above the trend line, that's these things that look like data points, they call those good events. Anything that happens below the trend line, those are bad events. If something gets so below the trend line that it's close enough to touch the death line, that's a really bad event. That means game over for your organization. That's the death line. Okay, so this is the 10X journey, and to illustrate this in the book in Chapter 5, we have another mountaintop event. Because if you're going to take this 10X journey and reach for the stars, if you're on a mountaintop, you're that much closer. So here we go. We got two teams trying to get to the summit of Mount Everest, 1996. One is an adventure tourist team. The other is an IMAX production team. They've got a big, expensive, state-of-the-art camera and $1 million budget. Probably so does the tourist. Here's the deal. One of these is a 10X company, the other one is not. It's the IMAX team. Spoiler alert here. The adventure tourists, they bring enough oxygen canisters so that they can make their summit bid and then get home and they can all cash their checks and everybody's happy. The IMAX team, they bring a whole lot of extra oxygen canisters because they're planning on, well, productive paranoia. It could be bad weather. They could run into another group of people going to the summit at the same time. They did. So here's what happens. I'm going to cut to the chase. The adventure tourists run into trouble because they ignore things like their turnaround time, which is a predetermined time that is time to go back down the mountain no matter where you are. They pressed on with their enough oxygen to make one summit bid, ran into bad weather, and they ran out of oxygen. The IMAX team, with their extra oxygen reserves, they used up about half of them in order to save the butts of the adventure tourists. A couple of weeks later, when the weather cleared and everybody was happy, the IMAX team made their summit bid, and lo and behold, yes, they did it. 10X journey. Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you.